Today with you will be Joe and me. I'm Yelena Jaruchik. I'm a head of marketing at ProMix, and we will do today this nice session regarding unlocking the benefits of the Microsoft Power Platform. Yeah, a few words about Joe. This is our CEO of UK subsidiary. He's also famous as a Microsoft MVP, but a bit more of what he can be in help for you. He will tell in a few seconds later. Some few rules that we usually announce from the very beginning. You can see the chat. You may ask questions in the chat. Joe will answer these questions in the end of the call, or we will do our best to check the questions during the session. And from what I see, we have a huge support from our team members, so probably some of the questions will be answered during the session. Also, there will be work in my support team who will announce some important things, share links, and so on. So do not miss and check everything that is going on in the chat. And yeah, do not miss our upcoming webinars and events. Please subscribe on our newsletter. There will be also some updates on our LinkedIn, so keep an eye on all the updates and yeah, stuff we are sharing and publishing. This year, webinars will be more frequent, so the next one will be in March, on 29th of March, and it will be PSA to PO migration, which might be interesting to many people. It's really hot topic. But yeah, today we are not talking about PSA and PO migration. We're talking about Power Platform and other stuff. So yep, let's start. And yeah, welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much, Elena. So welcome everybody to today's session. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So I think this is a pretty fun topic. Hopefully I can convince you of it. We're going to be talking today about the Power Platform in a bit more detail. So as a broad agenda for what we're going to be going through, we're going to be talking about a sort of a problem known as the app gap, and we're going to really explain what we mean by that as a sort of term. From there, we're going to then go in and look at the Power Platform, really sort of introducing it at a high level before we start to go into a much more deeper dive, looking at the key technology areas. Hopefully have some demonstrations as well to sort of show you what is possible with the technology and how quickly you can get going with it as well. And then finally, we'll talk about some of the importance of a trusted advisor when it comes to the Power Platform and how we as ProMix rather humbly can hopefully potentially assist organizations with that. We'll round up with some closing thoughts. We'll have a short time at the end hopefully for some questions and most importantly we'll have some call to actions. I was always told never end a presentation without at least some call to actions. So this is what you're going to get at the end today. So as Yelena has mentioned already, so hello, my name is Joe Griffin. I head up the UK-based practice for ProMix. I've been involved with the Power Platform since its inception. Power Platform is quite a funny Microsoft product. Well, one of many funny Microsoft products in terms of the evolution around that. So I originally started out with the product which was known as Dynamics CRM at the time. And this has now naturally evolved into what we call the Power Platform today. So I like to get involved quite a lot as a evangelist in the community, very fortunate to be a business applications MVP. And in my day-to-day life, I generally get involved on projects as a sort of technical architect advisor and really sort of looking at how we can extend out the Power Platform or Dynamics 365 platform using sort of pro-code extensibility. So very pleased to be with you today and hope we can hopefully convey some useful knowledge and topics to you. So if you are like me, familiar with the UK train systems, in particular the London Underground, you'll no doubt remember that sort of famous phrase that's always shouted out, mind the gap, before you jump onto a train. And, you know, it's a concept that we need to be mindful of more generally when it comes to our IT solutions as well, because there is a pretty big gap at the moment between what is possible from a technological standpoint and the actual day-to-day realities within most organizations. And really what we are seeing across the globe is that there is an app gap. Effectively, people and organizations need these applications. We just look at, for example, our smartphones, the number of apps that we've got on there, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Businesses are the same. And as COVID has sort of taught us, really, we need to be being a lot more agile. We need to be thinking a lot more around digital transformation and making sure that as an organization, we've built out these apps and services for either our internal users or our end customers that can connect from anywhere, that can do a lot of really good automation and eliminate those manual processes, help with collaboration, particularly in a virtual standpoint, ensure that we're using technology in the most efficient manner, and finally, making sure that we're optimizing all aspects and facets of the organization, from resources, data, through to talent. And what we have here is a real demand for these type of solutions. So some useful stats on here, which have been collated by Microsoft. So over the next 5 years, there's going to be 750 million apps created, and that's going to be more than all the apps that have been built in the last 40 years. And that's a pretty staggering sort of statistic there, I would say. So we've got this huge demand, but in a lot of cases, organizations are actually struggling to understand the data that we're working on, that they're working with day in, day out, therefore making it a real challenge to act on any potential insights that may be driven. And to top it all off, employees could end up actually spending much more time tackling more impactful work if half of today's digital work was automated. So that old mantra really sort of stands true on here. We want to be working smarter, not necessarily harder. With these digital solutions, we can perhaps start to unlock that slowly but surely. But the demand is there. We know we need apps. We know we need to digitally transform, but we have got a shortfall in terms of expertise, in terms of knowledge. It's not always going to be fortunate. We're not always going to be fortunate or be in a position to have these wonderful, super smart, super genius developers in an organization working day in, day out. So therefore, we need to react to that, and we need to make sure that from a technology standpoint, we've not got that key dependency on this critical resource type, and we can try and sort of address this huge shortfall that we're seeing from a resourcing and from a skill set standpoint. So there's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of challenges both from a business standpoint in terms of making sure that we can actually do this in an affordable manner. Making sure that we're not hiring, let's say, 5-10 developers who generally will be have a bit more of a price tag onto them. Making sure that we're managing our various different processes, whether they're sort of simple or processes, more complex ones, paper-based processes. If you're an organization who has been around for maybe more than 20 to 30 years, then this is going to be a very key pressure point for you. And also as well from an IT standpoint, making sure that we are ticking all the boxes. IT within most organizations will be looking out to make sure that we are being secure, that we're being sort of effective with the systems that we've maintained and ultimately compliant, and avoiding things like shadow IT, where you've got people going off and creating their own solutions without any sort of governance or controls around it. So all of these concerns start to become pretty sort of apparent with all of this. And one of the ways in which we can start to get here is by looking at a low-code solution. And this can really start to transform our businesses in quite a few sort of meaningful ways. And when we're talking about this isn't really a new concept. We've been doing this for years. Excel has been around since the early 90s. We've been using Excel to build out all manner of business solutions. And if we get particularly handy or dangerous with Visual Basic, then the world is our oyster there. In a similar vein, access databases. I'm sure there'll be people on the call today who have got one or maybe several different access databases that may be kicking around and may actually be doing something pretty business critical in the organization. So this is not a new concept over here, but what we have seen is that there has been an evolution in terms of what the cloud brings us now, evolution in terms of what the programming languages that we've got available to us these days, with things like C# and JavaScript becoming a bit more sort of prevalent. So we need to have a new solution in place that can address these different concerns. And I guess looking at this diagram on here, start to unify the picture. So if we have got somebody in the organization who's really super knowledgeable when it comes to a particular business process, wouldn't it be great if we can give them the tools so they can go and build a solution themselves? And where maybe they get a bit stuck, maybe they need a bit of a helping hand, maybe a bit of a little sort of C# or JavaScript code snippet to achieve a particular requirement, then we can start to involve our consultant and pro devs. Wouldn't it be good if we had a platform or a sandbox area that we could all come together and sort of play in a very nice and happy sort of way. So rather conveniently for today's topic, Microsoft does have a solution for this, and we call this the Power Platform, effectively. And what we have here is an end-to-end sort of journey that we can use to address and build out all of these various different types of solutions on here. And really, it's about making sure that everyone from our business users through to our developers have one shared platform that we can work on, that can allow us to work to our very best in terms of what we bring to the table from a knowledge standpoint. And really, when we start to use these different solutions together, build a very nice unified solution. It's like sort of going into the kitchen, going up to the top of the shelf, grabbing a few ingredients, mixing them all together, and hey presto, you've got hopefully something pretty nice at the end. So individually, we've got all of these different key services within the Power Platform. And this is a complete set of integrated low-code development tools that can scale very easily from maybe just a few users to, across the entire enterprise, all running on the Microsoft cloud, all being enterprise ready, secure, and being a great jumping point for anybody to get involved. So in my own case, my experience is more from a sort of .NET and technical standpoint. With the Power Platform, I'm able to sort of bring my skills to the table and actually contribute in some really meaningful ways, whilst also maybe taking some of the legwork out of building simple things like maybe an application interface or a simple end-to-end automation. So here we can do things like building out simple or complex workflows. We can create different sort of websites or experiences for our internal colleagues or for our customers. We can start to get some insights in terms of what's going on using Power BI, a very capable and powerful tool. And we can start to bring artificial intelligence into the equation. Now, this is something that has a lot of sort of buzz about it at the moment. With what we've seen recently with things like ChatGPT, this is only going to become more and more important. And certainly what we can expect is that from the Power Platform standpoint, given Microsoft's commitment in this area, this is going to unlock even more capabilities. So now we've even got the ability now to go into the Power Platform, write a few sentences in terms of what we need from a automation standpoint, and then the AI goes off and builds us a ready to go workflow. That's pretty amazing and pretty sort of representative in terms of where things are going and the importance more generally that AI is going to bring to the table. So Power Platform can help you start to understand what's possible on here and start to, I guess, really apply it in a really effective way in the organization. Not in a gimmicky way, but in a way that sort of really addresses a key business problem or challenge that you're facing. So the Power Platform has been around for a few years and it's already seen a lot of momentum. A lot of big name organizations are using it. And these facts and figures sort of speak to themselves in terms of what it can potentially do for the organization. Not only can we sort of hopefully be a bit more agile in terms of what we're building and deploying, we can ultimately keep our colleagues and the business happier by making sure that we can get to where we need to a lot faster. We can improve our customer experience and we can see a really huge return on investment, over a 3-year sort of period. And really, you wouldn't really sort of take my word for it necessarily. You want to look to maybe somebody who is a bit more sort of independently minded. So Gartner consistently ranks all of the major cloud vendors in a variety of different categories, one of them being low-code application platforms. So Microsoft has and has remained a leader in this category for a number of years now, as you can see, very close to the likes of Mendix and OutSystems in terms of the investments that they're making. And this is pretty consistent with what Microsoft is doing more generally across the entire business application space, consistently recognized in terms of their not only their capabilities, but also in being a real market leader solution. So really it does sell the case more and more, more generally in aligning yourself towards Microsoft as your sort of vendor of choice, in this category. So what have we got here then in a bit more detail? So first of all, we've got our Power Apps, as you can see, very handily wearing the t-shirt today for this. So with this, our business users, our citizen developers, and also our pro developers can actually go in and modernize different processes and address tough challenges by building solutions to address everyday problems. So it becomes very easy for anybody to go in and build a fully working business application that can be accessed on the desktop, that can be accessed on the mobile, can connect to different sort of data sources depending on what we've got in place already. And this is not only just Microsoft first-party data sources, but also other third-party and other competitor products as well. For our developer friends, they can come in and they can extend out the capabilities of our Power Apps using either the PowerFX formula language or using technology and tools such as JavaScript as an example. And these applications can then be integrated inside different areas of the overall platform. So if we wanted to, for example, embed an application into Microsoft Teams, we can do this very nice and easily. So, you know, we spend pretty much all of our daily lives, including this webinar, working in Teams. So if we can make people's lives a bit more easier by just making sure that we've got our key business systems accessible through there, then it's hopefully going to reduce some pressure points there. Now, Power Pages is a fairly new sort of feature of the platform overall. You may have heard of this referred to previously as Power Apps portals. What this is really about is about allowing us to very quickly and easily build out external facing websites that can then connect back to our underlying data sources. And to really take out a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the technical expertise that you would need to build out a website. So you don't necessarily need to know how to write HTML or CSS code, but you can if you wanted to. So you may have noticed on the diagram on here, at any point you can just click on a nice little edit code button, and immediately that's going to open up a Visual Studio Code environment that our developers can go in and tinker to their heart's content. So our Power Pages, we're thinking of these different scenarios, anything where we need maybe customers or colleagues to sign in, submit information, or anything where we just need a website or a page very quick and easy. And there's been a lot of investment into some of the different templates that we can see over here to cover different business scenarios. Definitely seen a lot of investment in this product and will only continue to do so in the future. So with Power Pages and with Power Apps, you know, the name of the game is rapid app development. And as we'll hopefully see in the demonstration in a short while, we can build an app in less than 5 minutes if we're being a bit clever about it. So these apps will work pretty nicely across not only our Windows-based environments, but also on iOS and Android as well. We can sort of automate the tedious aspects of app development. You know, so rather than having to, you know, go through the typical developer process of building a model, controller, and then a view, and then designing the entire page, you know, rinse and repeat 50 times until the end of time, all of that is gone. And instead, we can just allow the platform to do the hard bits for us, and we're just then focus more on the sort of more challenging aspects of our overall solution. Power Apps and Power Pages support this nice fusion development, or what we call fusion development experience, where we've got, you know, our business users and our developers working hand in hand. So as we saw in the previous example, you know, if we don't know any HTML code, we can still build a Power Pages. If we do know HTML code, then we can go in and we can edit it. So it's one big happy sandpit or sandbox that everyone can go in and collaborate on. And finally, we can hopefully try and lighten the load of IT more generally. So, you know, because what we're looking at here is more of a software as a service type product, we don't need to be worried about having to maintain or, you know, or secure different, you know, components in a cloud environment. So there's not going to need to be, you know, a virtual machine or an operating system that we need to go in and patch every week to make sure that we are meeting our information security requirements. All of that is just handled for us. And it makes it very easy, therefore, for us to maintain the solution and just focus on, you know, the issues that we've got as a business, as opposed to a load of additional things which we don't necessarily want to concern ourselves with. So it's easy to create, easy to connect, and easy to extend. And what we can also start to do, as well as we mentioned already, is start to bring in some of this artificial intelligence capability. And what we have within the platform is something known as AI Builder. So this is a turnkey solution that comes pre-ready equipped with a range of different models that we can either just start using straight away. So for example, you know, do things like language translation or, you know, or scan invoices as an example, and also additional models that we can train as well. So for example, if we're wanting to maybe we've got a lot of paper documents that we need to extract key information points from, we can use the form processing model to effectively train a OCR OCR capability that will then go through all of our documents, extract out the key attributes that we want, and then save these in a location that we want. And the good thing about this is that this model can be trained very easily. In some cases, all you need are 5 or 10 different examples. So we don't need to go through and spend a whole lot of time building this up. I've worked with OCR solutions in the past that typically would require a lot of trial and error and a lot of sort of technical complexity behind the scenes to get working. This really makes it a whole lot easier. And as I say, AI generally from a Microsoft standpoint, is going to be a continued area of investment and focus. So if we're not already looking at this as an organization, we will find ourselves falling behind in the future if we're not careful. So we can work with a variety of different components. So as a software as a service product, this can be accessed within the cloud primarily. So as long as we've got a stable internet connection, and a modern browser, we can go in and start building these solutions. For our developer friends, we've got a rich array of different sort of software development kits and different extensibility points into tools like Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, so that developers can use the tools that they're most comfortable with. And there's a real drive as well these days to ensure that we've got a cross-platform baked into the platform. So we don't necessarily need to be tied to Windows. We can be doing a lot of this stuff on Linux and also Mac OS as well. Another great thing about this as well, and this is something that our Power Automate functionality benefits from as well, is the sheer range of different connectors that are available to all the different apps and services that we may want to work with. So this can be a real boon to us because it can actually allow us to get started a lot quicker. So if we, do, for example, have a Salesforce system that we're using, as our customer relationship management system, there's no barrier to us bringing in a Power Platform-based solution. We can just use the out-of-the-box connector, create a Canvas application, trigger automations against that, and maybe also integrate with other services like maybe Jira or Google Sheets or Google Docs. And also our developers can actually go in and build additional connectors as well if they're most interested in doing so. So this list is growing all the time. You've got all sorts of different connectors available. Everything from sort of serious ones for our core Microsoft services like SQL Server, right through to some pretty interesting ones like you can get a random Chuck Norris fact each day if that's your interest. I think there's also one for dad jokes as well. Create an automation, send a dad joke to either yourself or to your colleagues to wind them up each day. I can think of no better use of this technology than that, really. So speaking of Power Automate, what have we got here then? So the name of the game here is automation. So anything to do with taking, a complex process where maybe we need to talk to different business systems, where we've maybe got some challenging legacy applications that we need to automate, right through for just really understanding or trying to get an understanding of the most optimal way for us to complete a process. All of this and more is what Power Automate will allow us to do. As we can see on this slide over here, this process of building out these automations is a very straightforward one. We get a nice drag and drop editor that we can use. We can visualize and see very clearly what our automation is doing. So in this case, we're going to be triggering an automation every time a new email arrives. And based on the number of attachments that the email has within it, we're then going to go off into OneDrive and download those files and save it down there. And then maybe once we're done with that, we can maybe delete the email from our inbox and maybe take out some of the pain that's involved with, that time of the week where you're having to go through your entire inbox and delete all the emails that you haven't got around to doing so as well. So really, whether it's for personal productivity hacks, as I like to call them, or for maybe something a bit more what I would term serious from an enterprise or from an automation standpoint, this tool can handle it. And it's using a lot of the capabilities that we've got within the Microsoft Azure platform to support all of this. So this is what we can use it for. We can not only use Power Automate in isolation, it's going to be a very good tool if we were to do that, but actually, and this is true for a lot of the different solutions in the Power Platform, when we start to bring in other items from the shelf, so for example, AI Builder, and also maybe Power Virtual Agents that we'll talk about a bit later, this is where we can start to do some really interesting things. And we'll look at an example, hopefully in a short while, that shows how we can use Power Virtual Agents and also Power Automate together hand in hand to really do some pretty interesting things. So automations can run in different environments. These can be sort of cloud-based automations where we maybe got two or several different software as a service applications connecting to each other. We've got our what we call our desktop flow capabilities, which is basically targeted towards those more challenging automations where typically maybe we don't necessarily have an API to work with or backend access to a database. What we can do here is record the manual automation steps that we're most interested in, and this will then allow us to execute this either in attended or unattended mode. So this can be quite good, if you just wanted to automate your entire morning schedule for responding to emails, for people asking for stuff, then you can maybe just record a desktop flow, go off and make a cup of tea, and then you'll see that everyone at the desktop flow would have gone off and basically said no to all the emails that of people asking you stuff. So very good tool there. We also have what are called business process flows, and these are more of a Dataverse related component, which we'll return to shortly, but generally quite good for these guided processes where we need to sort of enter data and potentially also then trigger actions, once we get through different stages. Every business has processes, different sort of steps that we need to go through. Some may require, intervention or some action to occur, and business process flows can really help us in this objective. So Power Virtual Agents. So this allows us to build out these different chatbots, AI-based chatbot solutions that we can then either look to embed within our own environment in Microsoft Teams, or even maybe take a little bit further and actually maybe put on our website or on other additional sources as well. So in the past, the whole process of building out a chatbot would have needed a developer, 100%, no questions asked, simply because of the complexity involved and the need to bring in different services and solutions. With our Power Virtual Agents, what we now have instead is the ability to create these without having to worry about the infrastructure, without having to worry about um, the detailed knowledge that we need, like C# and other technology languages, and effectively put this into the hands of our subject matter experts, and they can then go off and build a chatbot maybe so that people can actually maybe submit holiday requests, maybe get some information about an upcoming event that's happening. And this tool really starts to work in a powerful way when it is in the hands of our subject matter experts. Because I mentioned before, these are the people in the organization who typically will know their processes inside and out. They will be very precious and care, to an insane degree to ensure that their processes are followed step by step. So by putting this solution in their hands, they can be self-sufficient. They can update and modify the different sort of messages and the different sort of chat flows very easily, and then sort of deploy this out without needing to rely on anything complex behind the scenes. So again, really just trying to remove a lot of the cliffs when it comes to traditional sort of chatbot development. And this tool works really nicely. You can build a chatbot literally within sort of 15 to 20 minutes, I would say. These chatbots can be fairly agnostic when it comes to languages and also the channels that we deploy it out over. And it's going to be learning as well behind the scenes. So as more people interact with the bot, it's going to be sort of detecting that, gathering all the information together. And over time, we should see it become a little bit more smarter. What I quite like about it as well is it also does a pretty good job of handling different ways and different phrases of that people may use, things like greetings or the different words people might use to describe the same thing. The bot generally does a good job of handling all of this, and we can keep an eye on it at any particular point. We've got some rich analytics embedded into the tool, so we can literally go as deep as even sort of seeing exactly what chat sessions have occurred, and take some corrective action from there. So with these different services, there's lots of data starting to fly about left, right, and center. So we need something that can hopefully rein all this in and display it in a really engaging and effective way. And this is where Power BI is a particularly sort of effective tool. It allows us to get clarity over our data and actually build out some solutions which can be really engaging and actually quite interesting and, dare I say, fun to work with. So this sort of tool always goes down really well with those who are used to their Excel-based reports, pivot charts and stuff like that. You introduce Power BI into the equation, and you certainly can see that people do start to pay attention a bit more. They're sitting upright in their seats, and they actually start to listen a bit more at this stage. So similar to some of the other tools that we've talked about already, Power BI can bring in data from a variety of different tools. So not just Microsoft services, but also other external ones as well, benefiting from those from that range of different connectors that we've got available to it. Artificial intelligence is embedded into the product as well. So we've got the ability to be able to use AI-infused visualizations and even generate visuals on the fly using things like the Q&A builder. And we can start to get to the point where we've got these nice real-time dashboards and views over our data that can be accessed, either on the web or on our desktop or even on our mobile devices. And also, as well as a technology, we can put this into the hands of business users. So typical scenarios would be that maybe we'd do some work to maybe build out some approved or quality data sets in the organization. And then from there, we can then start to give this to users to connect to the data sets, build out their own reports, and then they can then start to become self-sufficient from a reporting standpoint. So really, self-service business intelligence is what we're driving towards here. And I think the product does a really amazing job at doing this. It's always a real pleasure to demonstrate anything to do with Power BI. I think it's a very compelling solution in terms of what it can do and the value that it can unlock for an organization. So we talked about the headliners, you'd call them, from a Power Platform standpoint, but you do have some very important support acts keeping us busy and warming us up underneath the hood that we really should mention. So we've already talked about AI Builder to a large extent. So really a nice turnkey solution to allow us to bring artificial intelligence into the party. We've got our what we call Dataverse as our sort of effectively our what I want to call database as a service in the cloud. So maybe as an organization, we've not been very formalized in terms of how we capture data. Maybe we are addicted to our Excel spreadsheets, and we're just looking to find a solution that's going to allow us to store our data in a nice, effective way, benefit from all of the good things that you traditionally get when you work with tools like SQL Server, but without necessarily all the baggage that comes with it, the environments, the infrastructure, having to go in and, reset your stats and indexes every day, making sure that you've got the right clustered index created over those 4 columns and that they're order created, horrible stuff. With Dataverse, all of that is handled for you. You can just go in, anybody can go in and create these tables, create these columns without needing to write a single line of code. And the Dataverse also benefits us greatly as well from a Dynamics 365 standpoint as well. So if in actual fact, if you're using any of the Dynamics 365 solutions like sales, customer service, or maybe even project operations, then actually you're already using Dataverse underneath the hood. And that gives you a really nice way of being able to sort of then go in and extend out what you get out of the box with these applications in a nice way. And finally, this is a fairly recent, hot off the press concept. You've now got this concept of managed environments. And this is really where we want to start to have additional governance and security over the solutions that we want to build out. So one benefit that managed environments bring into the equation as well is things like more enhanced application lifecycle management controls. So we can actually deploy solutions very easily between our different managed environments, again, without needing to rely on code, and also other benefits as well that will hopefully be of particular use within the enterprise, and where we have sort of matured our overall Power Platform solution. So Dataverse, you're really going to do a lot more with your data. You're going to have good support here for not only being able to go in and build and customize Dataverse using the inbuilt tools, but also for our developer friends, they can go in and very quickly and easily maybe write some server-side C# code that can execute. Dataverse can integrate very nicely with Microsoft Azure, amongst other services, and really can be an effective tool for those key scenarios where we're formalizing what we're doing from a data management standpoint, and we want to sort of do things the right way without necessarily going caching all our chips and going into a full-blown SQL Server based solution. We also talk about with the Power Platform as well is this really nice integration across the different services. So we talked about the connectors already. well over 800 different connectors, more than enough to get your teeth into, I'm sure, but also some quite nice capabilities that allow us to bring our on-premise services and solutions into the party as well. So it could be that we're still running things like maybe SQL Server on-premise, IBM DB2, maybe some SharePoint environments. What we can use as part of the platform is something known as our on-premise data gateway. And this will allow us to build effectively a secure tunnel that will then expose out these sources into the cloud for us to work with within our Power Automate flows and our Canvas apps and so on and so forth. So it can really be a major boon to us, in unlocking, what we have on premise without necessarily needing to go through a very extensive exercise to expose them out. This also on-premise data gateway can work very nicely with Power BI as well. And it's one of the tools that we typically see for our customers, when they're wanting to, use Power BI in the cloud, but they have got, numerous data sources still based on premise. So as we mentioned, Dynamics 365 or Dynamics 365 customer engagement more specifically, is very pertinent when it comes to the Power Platform. So when we're in this sort of realm, when we as Promex are talking to you about project operations, for example, we are sort of pitching a solution to you that is, effectively sort of, oven ready, good to go, and can, with minimal customizations, and effectively, across the entire organization, we can say very confidently that we've got an app for that. And in a lot of scenarios, this can be a benefit to us. If we know what we want, or we know that Dynamics 365 sales can meet, 95, if not, 100% of our requirements, then we should be using it. It's going to save us time and effort in the long run. In the Power Platform world, though, we're not necessarily concerned too much, with there being an app for that. In actual fact, we're creating our own apps, on top of this. So this is where there's maybe a bit of a slightly different sort of change of thought here when it comes to this. We're being a bit more, I guess, creative when it comes to the Power Platform. We're not necessarily sort of saying that, okay, what we've got in the Dynamics 365 standpoint is 100% for us. We maybe think that maybe the gap could be, anywhere between maybe 75, maybe 50% of the way, or maybe we've just decided that, Dynamics 365, is not for us. We're going to go for a Power Platform based solution. Regardless of the direction we go in, we've got the support and we've got the tools at hand to be able to do it. But where we tend to find Power Platform working most effectively is where we've got Dynamics 365 in the equation. You really can't separate the two concepts that far apart. Certainly in my day-to-day work, and I'm sure many of my colleagues will also confirm this, we are working with the Power Platform day in and day out with the work that we do in Dynamics 365. And certainly there's a lot of value that can be delivered with the platform where we've already got one of these solutions in places. So whether we're wanting to have these more complex automations, whether we want to sort of visualize and see our data in some different ways, or maybe bring in things like maybe a chatbot or a portal, there's a whole host of different ways in which the Power Platform can easily extend out these solutions. Typically what we find in most projects for customers that we're dealing with is that, Dynamics 365 is a good fit. Maybe we get to maybe 80 or 85% in terms of a fit there from a solution standpoint. The Power Platform allows us then to fill in the remaining gap. And we can hopefully do this in a way that's going to be less painful in the long term, using these low-code technologies and not necessarily having reliance on lots of code to be able to build out a solution. So this is where the value really comes together and where we can hopefully start to meet those more bespoke requirements when it comes to Dynamics 365. So I've been talking for long enough. So all of this sort of sounds good on paper, I'm sure you're thinking, but it's actually probably going to be nice if we can see some of this in action. So I've got a couple of demos here, which we'll go through to show you what's possible with the technology. So I'm here in what we call the Maker portal. So the good thing when you're working with the Power Platform is you get these really nice new, job titles or teams that you're working with. I'm a maker, I'm working in a Fusion team, I'm a Fusion developer, all these really nice terms. So that's one reason to get involved with this. So the Maker portal is where we would generally kick things off. And we can very quickly and easily build an application from any existing data source that we're working with, and even from, shock horror, from an Excel document that we may have. So really, I guess there's no excuse not for us to not use these technologies because it supports Excel. That makes sense, doesn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in an Excel document, specifically this document over here. So I'm using this document to basically manage some different estimates that I've got for different flooring products in the organization. I'm going to turn this view on here into a fully working app that connects to the spreadsheet and updates it in real time based on changes. Sounds like a bold claim. Well, let's just actually see what we can do in no short time at all. So I just select the existing Excel option down there. In this case, the Excel document is stored within my OneDrive. And all I need to do is just select the actual document and the table in there, click on the connect button. What it's actually doing now, it's going off and reading the underlying data source, and it's going to build me out a fully working application within a matter of seconds. And it's pretty intelligent because what it's been able to do is go in and actually, map out all the appropriate attributes down here. It's been able to see that, okay, I've got links in the file to different sort of images that I want to work with. And what we now have here is a fully working application that allows me to see all of my carpets over here. And if I was to hit the play button at the top, I can go into each of these and actually see, okay, there's some details down there for each of those. I can maybe just do some modifications. So maybe just I want to maybe update the pricing on this one. So obviously carpet prices are not cheap these days, so maybe we want to increase that just by a little bit more. I've locked the file, so that's probably why on that one. So this is one of the things you need to be aware of with it. So I'll just exit out of that for now. Rookie mistake, unfortunately. But yeah, effectively, we can work with the data in the app. As we update the data in here, it's then going to go off and automatically update our data source. And if we wanted to at this point, I can very quickly and easily go in and make some modifications to the app. So we tend to talk of this being like a bit of a PowerPoint presentation in that you can just click on anything over here and just very quick and easy, maybe just modify a title at the top up there. Maybe I've decided, okay, I don't really like this blue color at the top up here for my sort of quick action bar. I can just go in and maybe just modify the color, maybe change it to a red up there like so. Just continue to do these amends, modify the application and get it really looking how I want it to be. So this is quick and easy. So in less than 5 minutes, we've got an application which does work, obviously with an asterisk over there, provided that you shut down the relevant documents. And this sort of shows you what you can potentially do in isolation. But where I start to think things get a bit more fun is where you start to mix and match these different technologies together and start to build out a more unified solution. So what can we do when we've got this sort of goal in mind? Well, we can maybe start to build out solutions that show information within our different environments with relative ease. So what I can do, for example, is maybe bring in one of our really lovely and nice pre-built Power BI reports that our colleagues have built over here. And I can very quickly and easily embed this into an application. This is an app that I just built this morning. Okay, so this took me probably around 20 minutes just to build, add in the existing report that we had over here, and we can then see over here that we've then got a nice, lovely, engaging report that we can work with to sort of see our core data in the organization. What we also get within Dataverse as well is a series of different pre-built tables as part of what we call the common data model, covering common objects that we tend to work with in most organizations. So things like, for example, maybe accounts for the companies that we work with, and also contacts as well. So rather than just having to think about creating these objects each time, we can just use them natively and customize them further. And we can start to do some other interesting things as well. We can actually achieve what I like to call appception by actually embedding an existing Canvas app into the application down here. So effectively, we can mix and match these different views. So maybe if I'm not quite happy with how some of these forms look on here, I can bring in a Canvas app or develop what's called a custom page entirely and add in all the relevant details over there for this. What I can also do as well is trigger automations behind the scenes. So what I can look to do is maybe just do a modification over here. So hopefully now the file has been closed and we should be able to see if I was to save this over here. So we can see that's been saved down there like so, but what should also have been happening behind the scenes is that I've actually triggered off a bit of an automation that's going to send off an approval to me to basically just confirm, okay, is that price change that you've just done, is that actually correct at all? So the approvals process is pretty nice because it works very nice and seamlessly within Microsoft Teams. So in a few moments, I should hopefully be able to see that I've got a new approval in this area over here. Of course, those are always the famous last words in terms of things working and not quite, and then actually working in the morning and then not working in the afternoon. So let's actually just jump in and see what we're doing with the automation instead. And maybe we could also just do some live fixing as well. We can actually fix the demo live. I bet you've never seen that before. Okay, there's clearly a problem down here. But what we can do with these automations is that we can actually, I can probably just re-trigger this one from earlier on. So this actually, the platform's helping me with my demo on here because effectively I can see there's the test that I did earlier. And in a few seconds, what I can do is just resubmit this automation flow run over here. And hey presto, I've saved my demo. So, it's pretty good for a few different purposes, not just for business use, but also for these nice presentations as well. So if we jump back to here, moment of truth. So activity up there. So yep, so we can see that I've had an approval through over here. So you can see what it's been able to do. It's been able to feed in dynamic properties of the carpet and the price value that's been updated. And what we get with flows natively in the solution is this really nice approval workflow engine. And this is something that can surface in our Microsoft Teams environments. It can surface in Microsoft Outlook, and allows us to very quickly and easily sort of send out approvals. And then based on the actions that we sort of do, we can then, trigger off different logic, which is really nice. So in this case, I can maybe do something like, okay, yep, looks good to me. And then just approve that. And if we go back to our automation over here, we should see that it's then going to go into the next condition down here and then do the action. So in this case, we're just literally just go confirming and going, yep, that's been approved like so. But when we start to think about the practical applications of this, we can start to think about doing some interesting things, like maybe triggering an approval, maybe then moving to a new stage of a process, maybe sending out an email, updating an external system, lots of different ways in which we can sort of use this. And as we can see, it all integrates very nicely with the tools that we use in each day. And finally, if we're wanting to maybe bring some artificial intelligence into the party, then we can actually use a chatbot potentially. So again, this is something that I built out just earlier today. It took me maybe about 5-10 minutes to build this out end to end. But what I've got here is my flooring estimate bot. And this will allow me to basically go in and basically ask a question regarding pricing for a carpet. So I'm going to just type in a random question. I need pricing for a carpet, please. Always be polite to the chatbot. So you can see it's then kicked this off over there. It's going to ask me what the name of the carpet is that I'm interested in. So in this case, I'm going to say it's going to be the Edimax Slaty Porcelain, which is what I want. Just make sure that's spelled correctly. After a few moments, the bot is going to go off. It's going to trigger an automation behind the scenes. And what it's then been able to do is actually get me the current price of that particular product from the very same spreadsheet that we saw before. And then from this, at this point, I can then just sort of go, okay, yep, the bot says, did that answer my question? Yes, it did. That got me exactly the information that I want. Yeah, I want to say you're the best bot in the world ever. And then from there, we can then maybe ask other questions to the bot. We can maybe ask for follow-ups or maybe get redirected or maybe escalated to other scenarios. And again, all of this was something that I built out in just a few short moments earlier on. And again, emphasizing what we've got on here, if we just to give you maybe a quick sneak peek into the behind the scenes, is we're using the capabilities within our Power Automate within the solution. So as an example, if I go to chatbots over here, go into my flooring estimate bot, what we'll see is that we get a nice sort of interface that we can use to build out the chat experience in the form of our topics. And then if we jump into this topic that I created earlier on, we can see down here, it's now at this point here triggering a cloud flow similar to what we saw before. And this cloud flow is very, very simple and straightforward. It's just going to accept a single value for the carpet name, It's going to query our Excel spreadsheet, and then from there return the pricing information that we're most interested in. So just let that open up, click on edit up there. So yeah, so effectively nothing too fancy, but very quick and very easy to build out. Certainly a major boon to our normal business users who don't necessarily want to get involved in writing code. All of this can be nice guided, and they can get help towards achieving a particular outcome or a scenario. Okay, so an almost pitch perfect demo there. Apologies for the slight technical issues with that, but hopefully gives you just a bit of a flavor in terms of what can be done with the platform. And as I said, all of that was stuff that I built out this morning. Probably took me less than an hour in total to build all that out. So it just sort of shows how quickly you can get going with this and actually start to build out some value as a consequence. So let's start thinking about the concept of a trusted advisor. So what do we mean by this? So basically, with on any journey that you're doing as an organization, whether it's maybe a simple or more complex initiative, it's always going to be helpful that you've got somebody, on tap, for lack of a better words, that you can call upon to help you when maybe things are going a bit sort of tough. And really, the importance of a trusted advisor cannot really be understated in this regard, particularly when it comes to the Power Platform, because they're going to be the ones, or the organization or a trusted advisor are going to be the ones that are going to allow you to get the most enablement out of your investment over here, and potentially come and step in and help with the more high value and high complex tasks that you're facing. One of the benefits of this platform is that a lot of the easy stuff you can do yourself. So therefore, the trusted advisor becomes particularly important when maybe you've dealt with all the low-hanging fruit and you've got a more challenging requirement sort of deal with. And really, at all times, you want to be seeing where the direction of travel is going, get the help that you need, and at the right time, and hopefully fairly fast as well. And also making sure that you can navigate the usual sort of mirrors and mazes, things like licensing every time there's a renewal. Making sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. So definitely very important that you always have a trusted advisor involved, regardless of who that is. That I cannot state that enough. With the Power Platform, make sure that you identified an organization that you can work with to support you on this journey. It really is going to deliver dividends to you in the long run if you do this. So it would be remiss of me at this stage not to perhaps maybe pitch ProMX as a trusted advisor for the Power Platform. Now, if you've been following us for a while, you'll know that project operations is what we're known for, is what we are, is particularly excel at as an organization. What I'd like to suggest to you today is that we're not only your preferred partner for project operations, but also as well for the Power Platform. I hope my marketing colleagues approve there of the very nice rebranding there and approve of that immensely. So, I would very much say that thanks to our experience with working with project operations, Dynamics 365 more generally, we are more than well placed to assist you in any stage of your journey with the Power Platform. And it always helps that regardless of which trusted advisor that you're working with, that they've got that really good key relationship with Microsoft and are able to, really provide that subject matter expert knowledge and expertise. So from a ProMX standpoint, and this is particularly, I feel this is particularly impressive for, a partner of our size. We're not only, have all the relevant competencies. We have in the past won Microsoft Partner of the Year. We were very fortunate to be readmitted into the inner circle of Microsoft Business Applications partners last year. This is a select number of partners globally who are invited into this, and it really sort of is a huge accolade for us, as well as also being as part of things like the Partner Advisory Board, being things like a cloud solutions provider, which is particularly important. We've been working with Microsoft for years, in lack of better terms, and we can really sort of bring all this experience to the fore, from a Power Platform standpoint as well, is what I would say. In terms of the clients that we've worked with over the past sort of 12 months, this just gives you a bit of a flavor on here. So most of these will be project operations related, but the Power Platform will be bubbling a lot underneath the hood. So I've been involved in quite a few of these projects. Personally, myself, the Power Platform has been critical to the success of a lot of these. Without the Power Platform at our disposal, and also most crucially, without our detailed knowledge of the Power Platform, we wouldn't have been able to build out the solutions as we hoped. So don't take our word for it. We've got some very good references and contact points from some key people within Microsoft who've been very kind to provide these sort of references to us and about our capabilities on here. We also have some really fascinating case studies. Literally also hot off the press is our one relating to Deutsche Bahn, which goes into details about the solution that we built out using Dynamics 365 project operations and aspects of the Power Platform. This is a joint case study with Microsoft. Definitely would recommend that you take a look at that. And it was really great to read through and see that when it first came live. So how can we help you then? So as I mentioned, we are what we call a cloud solutions provider, a direct CSP provider. There is a distinction there. So that means that we can offer the full suite of licensing to you directly as an organization and also guarantee you the best prices and ultimately the best support for those licenses as part of that. There is a distinction between direct and indirect CSP providers. So just make sure that you're aware of that distinction and that as much as possible you're aligning towards a direct CSP because they will be able to offer you a bit more than an indirect one. We can offer things like managed support agreements. We've got many sort of capable and knowledgeable colleagues who can offer that sort of pro developer knowledge and extensibility, particularly targeting things like .NET and Azure developers. We can help enable you with the platform by delivering training. We're very fortunate. We've got several different Microsoft certified trainers on staff at ProMX, so we can deliver training, aligned towards the official curriculum and the current exams that are available if needed. We can offer that best practice and that guidance, making sure that we can leverage the close relationship and also the subject matter expert knowledge of our MVPs, and really assist you in what we would call setting up a center of excellence in the Power Platform. And this is always going to be really essential. And I'm happy to speak to anyone about this in a bit more detail, but it really does help to establish a foundation for growth and success. So we can certainly help you in that particular regard. So I am very conscious of time and it would be great to answer a few questions before we wrap up. So as I promised at the start, I've got some call to actions for you, things that you should be going away and looking at after the day. So start to think about how this technology can be applied in your own organization. Think of scenarios, think of that low-hanging fruit or different ways in which we can apply what we've talked about today in practice. And the good news is that you can get started for free. Microsoft have what's called a developer plan. So as long as you've got a Microsoft 365 tenant, you can get access to all of this good stuff absolutely free of charge and play about with it at your heart's content. If you decide to go all in on the Power Platform, do make sure you align yourself to a trusted advisor. It doesn't need to be us necessarily, but just obviously we'd like it for it to be us. But just make sure that you do that. It is going to ultimately aid you in the long term. And if anything today has sort of struck a chord, maybe you've got some more questions or you just want to have a bit of a chat in detail about how we can use this, then by all means, please do reach out to me on the email address over here. I'd be happy to have a free 30-minute, no obligation chat with you just to see how we can maybe start to apply the Power Platform in your own organization. So thank you very much for listening. So yeah, we think hopefully we maybe have time maybe for a few little questions, all being well.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Well, honestly speaking, I did not see any questions so far, and we are already out of time. So that was a good thing from your side to share your email box. So do not hesitate to contact Joe directly. And I also know that he answers pretty good on his LinkedIn and pretty often there. Otherwise, please contact also the marketing team or directly ProMX website, on the ProMX website, where we will be always available for you and will be able to answer your questions. Thank you very much, Joe, once more for preparing these nice presentations and also demos. You really motivated. I see that some of my even colleagues to go and try some stuff, which from the first perspective, it looks not that hard. Of course, there will be more as more complex things you want to implement, as more questions you want to answer being answered, then it goes harder. But from the first point of view and from the first start, that really can be done with the try of managers and any kind of people in the company. So that's really, really interesting.
Oh, good stuff.
Okay, So I wanted to thank you, all of you, to being here on this meeting today. It was a pleasure having you here. And yeah, as I said on the very beginning, there will be more webinars this year, especially one coming in March. So check our LinkedIn or subscribe to our newsletter to be in touch and see what's coming. And yeah, I wish you nice and great the rest of the day or very nice evening, depends where you are placed, and see you next time on our Proimix webinars.
Thanks
Bye
all.
bye.
Take care.